Hey guys, it's Wanda and welcome to the Deep South Pantry. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about canning lids. We're going to talk about Ball, ForJars, and Superb. Over the years we've always used Ball canning lids. Always. And in the last few years we've been using the silver lids because we were told by the Ball company that silver would not rust as fast as the gold in our humidity. So that is why we use the Ball lids, the silver ones. Over the years, I've probably not had very many failures, 2 or 3 a year. Now, over a period of 2 or 3 years, I do find 1 or 2 somethings in the cellar that has popped a top. That's doable here in the South because of our heat and our humidity. It happens occasionally. But to lose 1 or 2 or 3 things a year is not bad at all. Some of them are 2 and 3 years old, and that would be another factor. So overall, Ball has been really good, and I do have my stash of Ball, just saying. In the last 8 months, I've been using a good bit of ForJars lids. Now, ForJars is a company that is based in the United States. This company is a Ukrainian couple who live in the United States who order from China. They are becoming a very reputable company really fast. A lot of your canning YouTube channels are using ForJars now, and I have a supply of those too. I bought several, and initially they sent me several of them to have to try, and so I try them like 2 or 3 lids in a batch so that I don't ruin a whole batch. I use my Ball and I use ForJars. And so far with ForJars, I have had really good success. I've not had any buckle, and I've only had a couple that did not seal tight when I put them in. And that's usually water bath, and that could be a factor. Maybe the jar wasn't hot enough when I put something in, or it didn't go long enough. Water bathing is kind of an iffy thing to me. I'd rather pressure can, but so far pressure canning, I've not had any failures. Water bath, a couple. So I like ForJars. ForJars has been good. Superb. Most of you may not have heard of Superb, but Superb is a company based in the United States, and they set up their own equipment, and they're making their own jar lids. A year and a half ago, Superb sent me some lids to test, and I did test them. I had just put my, I think I was doing green beans, maybe green beans and potatoes, I can't remember. I put them in the canner and had just turned the canner on maybe 5 minutes when I heard 2 explosions. So I shut the canner off immediately, waited for it to, it hadn't even built up pressure. It hadn't even started blowing steam or anything. It had only been shut down for 5 to 8 minutes maybe. It wasn't a long time. When I opened the canner up, contents of my jars had blew out into the canner. Immediately I called the guy that sent the Superb lids. He and I stayed on the phone off and on for a couple of hours that day. He also got the owner of the company on the phone, and we talked about the Superb lids. I did not do a review at that time, and I sent them my jars and the lids and the 1 or 2 with food in them so that they could test all of them and know what went on. I never heard from them again. Not one word in a year and a half. They sent me the Superb lids a week ago and asked would I do a review on the Superb lids again. So I said, okay, but expect an honest review. So I'm really hoping that they fixed the problem, but they never said they fixed it. They never told me what happened with my jars. They did. The owner did say he had a few in his batches that did that. But they kept saying in all the test batches, they never had that happen. When I was canning pears yesterday, Danny and I did the 2 batches of pears, 7 quarts in each one. And the first batch I put 1 wide mouth Superb and 2 regular mouth Superb in my canner. Then I put 1 wide mouth ForJars and 3 regular ForJars in my canner. It's a water bath canner. I was not pressuring at all, and the results is crazy. Danny's going to put a towel over them, but we have the 2 ForJars, 2 more ForJars, the wide mouth and the regular, 2 Superb regular, and 1 Superb wide mouth.
And the Superb wide mouth has already buckled just water bathing.
25 minutes.
25 minutes. If it had been a pressure canner, it would have blown the lid off of it.
When I looked into the canner, when the time was up, it only goes 25 minutes in a water bath mode, where it's boiling water, simply boiling water, no pressure, no nothing. The ForJars wide mouth was fine. The Superb wide mouth had buckles on both sides. You could see it before I even took them out of the canner. You could tell the difference. When I took it out of the canner, all of them out of the canner, everything there sealed. 7 jars sealed. So all of them sealed. The Superb, even the buckled wide mouth sealed. But it buckled. So I will not keep that one on my shelf. That will go in the fridge. We will eat those this next week. I don't like those odds. So far, I've never had any of the ForJars or any of the ball ever pop out of it. I've had a few wide mouth balls buckle. That was when we were doing sweet potatoes, and they go for an extremely long time under pressure. And so I did have some of the ball lids, the wide mouth, buckle when I was doing sweet potatoes, because they go like 90 minutes or something like that. So it's a long time under pressure, and some of the wide mouth balls did buckle. Now, I've not tried the wide mouth ForJars for long periods of time under pressure. So that's something coming up. I can't tell you about those yet, but water bathing, they did fine. I did use a lot of the regular mouth ForJars in all kinds of ways. I've pressure canned, water bathed, and dry sealed. On this shelf up here, I've got a lot of vacuum sealed dry goods with ForJars, and they're still holding. So I vacuum sealed, I pressure canned, and I've water bathed with ForJars. And so far, no issues. Now, I've not pressured long periods of time with the wide mouth yet, because our sweet potatoes are coming up, and we'll do some ForJars with sweet potatoes, because that's usually the longest time, that and meat. And I've not done meat in the last little while. Another thing with the Superb lids, the regular ones have the word Superb on them. The wide mouth has nothing. And they're blue here. Now, one thing I noticed, the regular ones have the indentation like ForJars and Ball does, and it's a better way to seal because it fits the top of the jar. But it's also got, it's a little bit different. Here is sunk way in as opposed to these. There's no bubble in the middle or anything like that. The wide mouth, the ring on the wide mouth is full. It doesn't sink in to fit the top of the jar. Maybe that's good. And then they have this raised ring around it, and in the center is hollowed out a little. So I'm not sure on that, if that's a deciding factor. That's just the way they're done. So I was a little disappointed that there was no writing on the lid. So, which jar lids would I use? I will use the Superb for possibly for just putting on a jar and putting in the fridge, or just dry sealing something down for a week or two. I don't know if I would even trust them for jams and jellies, but yeah, you could. I would keep an eye on them. That's just me. I can't recommend Superb because of the two times I've used them, 2 times I've had problems. So Superb is not something I would highly recommend, even though it is made in the USA. So ForJars I've been using about 8 months. I've used them on pressure canning, water bathing, and vacuum sealing. So far I've had good luck with ForJars, so I do recommend ForJars if you're interested. There'll be a link in the description below. And Ball. As always, Ball. I'm going to tell y'all, I like my Ball lids. So far they've not let me down. I stick with them as much as possible, but I know in this day and time, some of you have trouble getting Ball lids. So if you can find them, I would say go for it. If you can't, try the ForJars. I really like that they come in 100 or 50 packs, or you can get the lids in bands. Superb comes in 60 instead of 100 or 50. They got 60 here. So, you know, that's the differences between them. So which lid should you use? It's up to you. I'm going to use what I'm used to using, which is Ball and ForJars, until I see anything that tells me different. Now, I know a lot of people that have had problems with Ball, and so is it the person canning? Is it the way you can? Too much pressure? Too hot a water bath? Would it be what you're canning? I don't know. Sometimes environment, there's lots of issues that can happen in canning. Just because I can and seal everything and make it look this good doesn't mean you can. You may be overcooking or not blanching, or you may miss a step. I don't know. Everything is a factor when you're canning. I would say use a Ball canning book, always, or some canning book. Don't just off the cuff say I'm going to can something and can it your way regardless, or say I saw it on a YouTube video. Check a book, check the internet, find out before you do. Safety first, always safety first. That is why with the Superb, when I had the first issue with the explosion in my canner, I was not happy, because never in the life of my canning have I ever had anything explode. I've had many years ago when I was using mayonnaise jars, back in the day when mayonnaise jars were glassed, I would use mayonnaise jars to can in. And I pressure canned in mayonnaise jars, y'all, for years. But at least 1 jar a year would always, the bottom would come out and your food would come out the bottom. It did not explode. It usually never broke apart. It never touched the top. It was always the bottom of the jar would come loose from the top part of the jar. That's usually what I had happen. And so I would retire that jar and just say, okay, you know, faulty jar, blah, blah, blah. Never have I had a jar explode. There's a lot of factors in canning, so always take that into consideration when you start. Safety first. Cleanliness, oh my goodness. Sometimes cleanliness is just, that's got to be number one, I think. Safety and cleanliness. Wipe the tops of the rings. Make sure the rings are clean. If you do not get the top of the jar clean, how do you expect it to seal? You know, simple stuff. You just got to pay attention to it, to details. Don't skip a step. And all these jars would work. All of them. Even the Superb are going to work for you. I just don't trust the wide mouth, and I'm not sure I want to pressure can even the regular. As you can see, I'm very OCD about my canning, very much. I want my jars to look good. I want my food to look good. Most of all, I want my jars to last, and I want it to taste good when I open it. I don't want to have a blah taste in my jars when I open them. And so far, my canning has been great. I've had great success, and I will continue to use the Ball and the ForJars in the future. So guys, Thank you for stopping by. Hope this helps some of you to make a few decisions on your jar lids, and we'll talk to you later.